have it on both sides, and that's why I think, on top of having Doc Rivers and Ty Lue, why they're going to be the champions of this season.
Who do you think's going to win the West this year?
The Clippers.
I have a hard time picking against the Clippers.
Three-point shooting of the Clippers with Lou Will and Trez on the floor. The Clippers are the best team in basketball.
I trust Doc Rivers way more than Frank Vogel. So, Frank Vogel, I don't know. Yeah, Clippers in 7. So,
shots though.
George, way off. Hits the side of the backboard. Down, Murray puts up a 3. Bang! Jamal Murray from downtown. It's an 18-point lead. A shocking upset. They eliminate the heavily favored Clippers here in the second round, and an historic series win.
So it's no secret that the LA Clippers are the most disappointing team in recent memory, probably since the 04 Lakers. The collapse against the Denver Nuggets really exposed multiple issues that the Clippers have to address moving forward this offseason. With that being said, yes, the Clippers have the opportunity to come back and win a title as soon as next season, but I believe that they're in some serious trouble as the chances they go empty-handed with Kawhi and PG increase. Kawhi and PG will both potentially be free agents in 2021, as both of them do have a 2+1 option, with their third year being a player option, of course. So this means if the Clippers strike out next year as well, we could very well see Kawhi and PG walk out the door with the Clippers being empty-handed of a title with pretty much their best team of all time. Would most of this be blamed on the Clippers curse? Yes, most definitely. We all know the Clippers curse is alive and well, as we've seen 3-1 leads blown, unfortunate injuries at the worst possible times, and decades of persistent losing. But can some of the disappointment that happened this year in the playoffs be blamed on problems that the Clippers are more than capable of handling and solving? Yes, it can. First, let's look at the problems. Doc Rivers, in my opinion, is one of the more overrated coaches in the NBA. Not saying that he isn't good, because he is definitely top 10 when it comes to coaches, but I think a lot of his stock is put into that one championship he won with Boston in 08. Doc in these playoffs had a bunch of questionable decisions, playing Montrezl too much versus Jokic when Zubac was clearly the guy to roll with in that series, although Zubac got in some foul trouble. Bringing weak and obvious double teams for Jokic to pass out of, which, newsflash, is his greatest skill set, which makes it easier for him to find an open man. And awkward rotations in important parts of the game, including throwing Reggie Jackson and Landry Shamet out there for too many minutes in crunch time. No, the Clippers shouldn't fire Doc, because there really isn't another coach that is as good as Doc that's available. And I think all the things I just mentioned can easily be fixed. He is the guy for the job. One of the next problems for the Clippers was chemistry, or the lack thereof. Maybe all the Clippers need to do is run it back. Another season together, and hopefully this time guys are healthy throughout, and hopefully Kawhi and PG aren't alternating load managing as the season goes on, as they only played 37 games together. And when the bubble started, Pat Bev, Trez, Lou Will were all out for some games for 3 very different reasons. So the Clippers never had a chance to rediscover that chemistry, if it was even there to begin with. So maybe another season with each other might do the trick, even though I doubt it. Another problem for the Clippers was Paul George. Pandemic P was another problem that the Clippers have to look at here. Him shooting 35% from the field and 27% from 3, only averaging 18 points a game versus the Mavs. Had 4 really bad games overall in the playoffs, and the rest of those games, he didn't even elevate his game, which is more than needed in the playoffs, no matter how much of a favorite you might be. Does PG get traded? As for now, I would say no, but him potentially being a free agent in 2021, it wouldn't be far-fetched to think that he could be dealt by the trade deadline next season. It's obvious Paul George must stop playing lower than his standards when it comes to playoff time, because no matter what the Clippers do, if Paul George underperforms again, the Clippers will be going home early again. And unfortunately, PG will be looked at as one of the worst playoff performers of all time. So what should the Clippers do? Is trading PG an option? Let's say the Clippers are struggling 2 to 3 months or so into the next season, and chemistry still isn't seeming to help out the roster. Let's say the team does not look good enough to really compete for a championship, and it doesn't seem like they can turn the corner. And let's say PG still isn't playing up to his standards on a consistent basis, or is having nagging shoulder issues once again. Should the Clippers really consider trading PG around the deadline? I say yes. Who do you trade for is a question I can't answer right now, but I feel like it isn't the worst idea in the world to at least consider this trade. I'd rather trade PG while the ship is still sinking, just in case he wants to leave, so the Clippers at least won't be empty-handed there. I will say this though. The Clippers don't have their own first-round pick for the foreseeable future. As we know, there are 5 first-round picks traded in the Paul George trade, as well as another first-round pick in the Marcus Morris deal. So whoever the Clippers might want to trade will be difficult if a team is looking for a pick in return. So that's another factor to look out for there. I feel like Kawhi is too damn good to even trade, even though he could very well walk in 2021 as well. I'm willing to try to put the best team around him and then try to accommodate him and convince him to stay. 2. What did the Clippers do with Montrezl Harrell's free agency? Sixth man of the year, Montrezl Harrell is an upcoming free agent this season and is looking to get paid this offseason after a great 2019-2020 season, averaging 19 points per game on 58% shooting from the field and 7 rebounds. Although he is 6'9", he brings great energy off the bench for the Clippers and was very successful, obviously winning the Sixth Man of the Year award. But in the playoffs, he was an overall minus for the Clippers. Like I mentioned, he's undersized, so his defense is compromised. He struggled to guard the post. He struggled to guard and pick and roll, so you can't put him on a center. I don't think he's athletic enough laterally to keep up with a good amount of fours in this league, so it's tough. And as we've seen, if Trez isn't scoring as much as he normally does, then his value on the court is very diminished. That, coupled with the fact that he'll probably demand somewhere around 15 to 20 mil a year, the Clippers shouldn't be willing to give him that offer at this moment in time. What the Clippers should probably do is sign and trade Trez to get another big behind Zubac, or even a stretch big that can play some more defense. Serge Ibaka will be perfect for this team and for a lot of other teams, to be honest. He is a guy that can do more valuable things come playoff time, so maybe the Clippers and Raptors work a sign and trade there. Lou Will might be looked to get dealt as well, as he has the same problems Trez has, undersized for position, which makes it really easy for other teams to attack and force him to defend, and when he's not scoring, it's very, very tough for him to stay on the court in playoffs. Yes, he brings instant elite scoring, but he is such a liability on defense, and it's always tougher for smaller guards to score in the playoffs, especially for Lou Will, who is already a streaky shooter himself. So do the Clippers look to trade him as well? Lack of playmaking. What the Clippers could actually use is a point guard who can help set up the offense for PG and Kawhi, especially when they go cold. Shout out to Pierre from Through the Wire as he hit the nail on the head, saying that the Clippers needed a strong-headed point guard who can get the offense set up. The Clippers were bottom third in assists, and come playoff time, they're at the very bottom once again. Even with the eye test, you can tell the Clippers are missing that playmaker. We don't talk about it enough, but PG's struggles can be partly attributed to a lack of a playmaker who can set up their teammates. PG had to do more actual ball handling than scoring, which obviously you don't want. Pat Bev isn't a playmaker. Lou Will isn't a playmaker. Shamet isn't a playmaker. Reggie Jackson really isn't a playmaker. I mean, look how good PG can be when someone creates easy shots for him. Exhibit 1, last season with Russell Westbrook. PG put up career-high numbers, and offense came very, very natural for him. Playing with a playmaker as dynamic as Russ, but I'm not saying that the Clippers need to go out and get a guy as dynamic as Russ when it comes to playmaking, but they should go out and get a floor general that can help out PG and Kawhi get easy looks as they can play off the ball more. Therefore, the focus on them won't be as much. I mean, a great example right now is Rajon Rondo for the Lakers. He controls the pace, he sets his teammates up, and a great guy to have out there when the offense gets cold. A guy like DJ Augustin can do the trick as he's an upcoming free agent. Ricky Rubio would be fine as this position as well, as we all know how exceptional his playmaking ability is. And he's even gotten better with his jump shot, hitting shots off the dribble, as well as defensively. Jrue Holiday is a guy that's far-fetched for the Clippers to get, but he'll be the dream pickup for them. We know what Jrue brings to the table: elite defense, versatility on both ends of the court, as he's able to play on and off the ball, as well as being an exceptional playmaker. The bottom line is, the Clippers need to get a playmaker. The Clippers also need better in-game adjustments and execution. Yes, Doc Rivers is a good coach, but he must be better. There are way too many mistakes that he made and a lot of adjustments he didn't make. Not adjusting to Denver or Dallas. Bringing weak and very predictable double teams towards Jokic. Having very weird rotations with bringing in Reggie Jackson and Landry Shamet and bringing in Trez as opposed to Zubac versus Jokic. And lack of timeout calls when team tends to go on runs. Why can't he come up with a closing lineup that he can stick to? Simple adjustments will make the biggest difference in my opinion for the Clippers. With the potential free agency of Kawhi and Paul George in 2021, the Clippers should be in desperation mode. I believe they must pull out all the stops this offseason because this is their best opportunity to win a championship in franchise history, and it would be the most Clippers thing ever for them to not even come close to winning a title. Not to mention they're in an improving Western Conference with the Warriors, with Stephen Clay and Dre coming back healthy. Teams will continue to ascend, such as the Denver Nuggets, Dallas Mavericks, Phoenix Suns, and Memphis Grizzlies, also including teams that will continue to be good to great, such as the Lakers and Rockets. So the Clippers are in the weirdest spot right now, and it will be very interesting interesting to see how this plays out for them for the immediate future. In my opinion, the LA Clippers will fall empty-handed once again due to the Western Conference being as stacked as ever for next season, Paul George underperforming, and the lack of right guys around PG and Kawhi. But let me know what y'all think. What should the Clippers do to improve this season? Should Doc Rivers be fired? Who should they trade to improve their roster, and who should they trade for? Let me know. But this is Jimmy from Just the Facts, and I'm signing out. Peace.